Humanity's home is no longer Earth. Interstellar travel is now a common occurrence, and technology has replaced blood and flesh. Luca, who grew up in the slums, has turned 15 and taken the selection exams. Can he become a part of the Imperial Guard? Or will he be brainwashed and turned into a killing machine? The scene opens with a group of people firing at someone. Bullets fly towards a trainee and he thinks he needs to get rid of the people posing a threat to the Emperor. There's no other reason for the existence of the Imperial Guard. He fires multiple bullets at once and kills them all. After completing the job, he heads back to the base. The technology developed significantly on the Earth, but due to lack of resources, it continued to get destroyed. In the end, life on Earth ended due to an invasion by an unknown alien species. However, the survivors of humanity wandered through space and found a planet similar to Earth after a long journey. Humanity decided to call this new planet Novus, meaning new home. They sent coordinates to this new home to all of space, inviting other humans. A Balado Federation was formed, where countless alien species mixed amongst the Earthlings. An empire was formed which possessed soldiers with machinated physiques. A holy alliance was formed with priests who possessed force energy. However, the resources were finite on Novus. As a result, humanity prepared for a war to monopolize the resources. The person comes back and the instructor tells the next person that he'll be subject to a lot of comparison. Hem says that they are supposed to show the majesty of what they are capable of. This day matters a lot for them. Luca replies that they'll see who will be the unlucky one then. Hem says if that's the case, then he should live up to the expectation, and Luca agrees. He thinks he needs to be capable of dodging and blocking bullets. It's a necessary skill to become an official part of the Imperial Guards. He has completed the simulation training in most extreme situations. He's a soldier with heightened spatial awareness, thanks to all the reinforcement procedures he has gone through. He enters the arena, and a few armed men come inside as well. He thinks his opponents are 5 death row inmates with cheap cybernetic equipment. He takes out his sword and thinks this would take only 10 seconds. He dashes forward and slices a person's head. The inmates couldn't even react to his speed. The remaining 4 surround him and aim their gun at him. Luca thinks this is an opportunity to make a good impression on the Emperor, so he needs to do something noteworthy. He wonders if he could replicate what the previous person did. He has never done it before, but he must make it happen here. He needs to heighten his senses to the maximum. The inmates fire bullets at him from all 4 directions and he blocks every bullet with his sword. Hem grins on seeing Luca's performance and thinks he's doing good. Luca finishes off all 4 inmates and swings his sword clean of blood. His nose bleeds because of overexertion, but he managed to surpass his limits. He believes this would raise his value. He comes back inside, and Hem is amazed to see him use ballistic trajectory control, which isn't in the curriculum. Luca replies that he just copied the style of the previous guy. Hem says that the guy he's talking about is from a renowned household. He was already taught the curriculum in advance. He is different from him as he belongs to an orphanage. Hem says he likes him and will give him a gift. Hem places his hand on his eye, and everyone panics as to what he's doing with him. Hem crushes his right eye and says he's not fazed at all. He has done great work on pain tolerance. Hem says that he likes him, and Luca replies that he's glad. He says that he would have taken his eye out eventually. He would get him an eye that would predict trajectories. Later, Lei visits Luca and introduces himself. He came here because he wanted to talk about something. Luca sits puzzled, and Lei apologizes if it's too sudden. Luca tells him to come in nonetheless. Once inside, Lei says that he was impressed by his skills back then. Luca says that he's in the wrong place if he wishes to exchange praises. Luca guesses that Lei is probably from a famous household by his aura. Logically speaking, there's no need for him to be aggressive to someone from a noble household. He should just say that he's tired for now. Lei shows him a pill and says he came here to give him this. It'll decrease his sensitivity, and he can rest better. Luca says that he doesn't need it. However, Lei insists that he take it and have some rest for tomorrow's training as well. Luca eats the pill, and a broad grin appears on Lei's face. He thinks that this pill is better than cheap ones. Luca further says that he was pretty good and he just copied him. Lei points to his mechanical eye and says that he could easily calculate trajectories with it. His actions were much more impressive since he pulled it off with just his instincts. It seemed like the commander took notice of him and is gifting him an eye from his pocket. Luca thinks that the nobility class is excellent, while the lower class is powerless. He can't let go of this opportunity as a lower-class citizen. Lei says that some guys failed the selection process. He bet that those people paid money to manipulate results. However, someone like him who doesn't have a backup never fails at the selection. Guys like him made it here with their skills. Luca wonders why he's telling him that all nobles are not excellent. He never considered this possibility and ponders about his motive behind this. Lei extends his hand and says that people like him should succeed. He'll be cheering him from now on. Luca shakes his hand and says that he'll do everything for the Empire. On hearing Luca say those words, Lei becomes a bit sad. Later, Lei takes Luca to the shooting practice. Luca points his gun and activates his new mechanized eye. He fires his shot at the practice body. All his shots hit the dummy's forehead. Lei says he managed to shoot all the targets in the head. Top students are of a different breed. Is he getting used to his new eye? Isn't it fair that he's this good with guns when he specializes in close combat? Luca says that it's natural for them to be good with all types of weapons. Also, he doesn't want to hear this from someone who managed to shoot every shot through the same hole. Lei says that his specialty happens to be weapons after all. Luca says that if he continues being so casual, then he'll surpass him. Lei says that he would welcome the challenge then. Just like he said before, he's rooting for him. The Empire needs people like him. The value of ability and talent is being diluted in the Empire. As long as one has status and power, even the powerless can become talented. However, if more naturally talented people like him start to appear, then folks will be able to tell who's good and who's not. Luca says that he is criticizing the Empire's system. If he reports this to the headquarters, then even he won't be able to get away despite being a noble. Lei says that he wouldn't do that in the first place as he's a good person. He hands him his gun and tells him not to worry so much. Soon enough, 2 years pass, and the final day of training arrives. Hem says that Luca and Lei will act as platoon leaders in this training. If any trainee has an issue, then they can stand up and leave. Nobody stands up and he resumes his speech. He explains that across the gorge, there's a Korite outpost that is illegally stationed in their territory. This training will test their ability in the field. He grows serious and says they should kill them all and shouldn't take prisoners. Lei says that this will be their first mission. Luca asks, why is he so nervous? He has killed so many people during training. Lei says that this is their first time facing an outside force. They all originated from Earth's humanity as ancestors, including them as well. Luca tells him not to get lost in the emotions. Does he think that the senior guards are here to protect them? The senior guards stationed at the place have full mechanical body armor. He's pretty sure that they are here to supervise them. They might kill them if they try taking people as prisoners. On this planet, other forces are bugs to the Empire. They learned this as everyone deceives the Empire for their own gains. Lei says that he knows it. That's what they were taught. He zooms in and sees a happy mother-child duo. Soon enough, the Imperial Guards kill the human and destroy the place. They shoot the remaining survivors without mercy. Luca thinks that no one is armed, and this training would end without a problem. Suddenly he notices a kid crying in front of him, calling for his mom. Luca thinks that the kid is so scared that he can't even move. He thinks he's a non-combatant with no resistance. If only he had a gun, he would have finished this off quickly. He then remembers his instructor's word to kill everyone. He thinks he shouldn't hesitate. These are insects who sap up the Empire's supplies. He strikes at the child with his sword, piercing through the rock as well. The sword just misses the child narrowly and he cries in fear. Luca tells him to play dead. Only then he would be able to live. He thinks he shouldn't do this. If the headquarters knows of his actions, then he doesn't know what they will do to him. He leaves the boy and wonders if he should go back and take care of him. Suddenly, someone shoots the kid in the head. An Imperial guard sitting on top of a building took the shot. Lei nods at him in disagreement, saying that he shouldn't leave survivors. Luca wonders if Lei was watching everything unfold. He tries to calm himself down and thinks Lei won't report his hesitation about killing a child. However, if any other trainee saw this, then it wouldn't be good. For now, he needs to keep an eye on Lei. Suddenly, an explosion takes place where Lei was standing. Besides Luca, a man is pointing in the same direction. He charges up for another shot and says they should go to hell. Luca notices him and wonders if he caused that explosion. Suddenly, Lei jumps from the building and onto the man. The man, without looking behind, blasts explosives on Lei. Luca thinks that he's a force user who doesn't need a weapon. The man says that this wasn't a base, but a settlement. The people they killed were doing their best to live. Luca wonders if the instructor knew about this. If had he told them in advance, Lei could have survived it. He rushes forward at the man and thinks he can dodge the explosions. The force user's nose starts bleeding from exertion. Luca also reaches his limits. He thinks he needs to maintain the high-speed maneuver and attack him in this state. The man blasts an explosive at Luca. Luca dashes forward with his sword and strikes the man. The man on his last breath charges up the attack on Luca's face. His head armor begins to break and he wonders if this would be his death. However, the man hesitates to kill him as he sees him to be a child. Luca quickly uses the distraction to kill him. After killing him, he pants heavily. He thinks he would have died if that man went through his attack. These people have a deep hatred for them and the Empire. So why did he fail to kill him? He thinks he shouldn't let his emotions consume him during the battle. He believes he's doing the right thing as this is for the Emperor's safety. More screams echo in the place, and he thinks this is why Imperial Guards exist. The scene shifts to the recovery room where numerous pods are lined up. Lei asks how it felt when he was about to die. Luca replies that he should be concerned more about himself as he almost died. Lei replies he got new arms and legs and asks if they changed something in his body. Luca replies that his back was destroyed, so he got titanium bones and artificial skin. At this rate, he'll end up with a completely new body in a few years. Lei says the boss must have known there was a Force user. The reason they weren't told about this was that it was a test. Luca agrees. The seniors didn't help them as well. He finds it weird that he and others who got blasted by Force attack, but survived it. That's a little too odd to say it was a coincidence. Luca says that maybe the Force user didn't intend to kill them from the start. He remembers the moment when he stopped after seeing he was fighting a kid. He thinks he's a warrior, and letting him live was a mistake on his part. He'll make sure to kill every one of their kind. Lei asks why he closed his eyes on that Korean girl. Can he tell him the reason behind his action? Luca replies that he talks too much. That was a mistake on his part, and will never happen again. Later, a man says that they have now completed 2 years of their training. There will be juniors, so they should set an example for them. He especially instructs Luca and Lei as they are the top 2 students in the class. If they keep doing the work, they can become a centurion. They both reply affirmatively. Luca explains that there are 1,000 guardsmen in the Imperial Guard, consisting of centuries, and their commander is called Centurion. The man leaves and says they can continue their training. Luca thinks that cadets like him are assigned to the lowest-ranking century. If he could become a centurion of that century, then he'd consider it a success. Later, Luca and Lei are sparring with each other. Luca defends Lei's attack and Lei follows up with one more hit, pushing Luca back. He thinks that Lei got stronger after he got his new arm. As Lei charges forward, Luca kicks him in the legs, knocking him out of balance. He then stops his fist just a few inches before, and proclaims that he won all 124 rounds. Later, Lei says that he thought he would win this time, but couldn't. He asks if that centurion speech riled him up, as he has become more rigid now. Luca agrees, stating that he would be seen as an Imperial Guard, so he must become strong. Lei suggests that he takes it easy. Luca replies that he has nowhere to return if he doesn't become a full-fledged Imperial Guard. He needs to keep climbing the ladder. Luca further says that Lei, you have talent but lack drive. He wants to know why he still wants to become a guardsman. Luca asks if he looks at him that way. He's right to some extent, as he wanted to become an archaeologist who studies ancient civilization. Luca asks why he isn't pursuing his real goal. Lei replies that studying ancient civilizations is banned in the Empire. He asks if he's sad just because he can't do what he wants. Unlike him, countless people aren't guaranteed to live another day in slums. Lei says that he knew he would say something like that, since he's a friend, so he shared his secret with him. Luca suggests that he be careful. If others report him for this, his life will be ruined. Lei says that he won't tell the Emperor, just like he kept his secret back then. Luca replies that he only hesitated because his opponent was non-combatant. Even if he didn't interfere, he would have killed him anyway. He's loyal to the Empire as they noticed his talents. The enemies of the Empire are his enemies. He tells Lei that he's no exception to that rule. Lei jumps down and says he's a liar. If what he said was true, then he would have tried to kill him already. He suggests him not to push himself too hard. The scene shifts to their 3rd year of training mission. Lei places his hand on an arcane site and says there's still an energy response despite being millions of years old. He is fascinated by the idea that multiple civilizations explored stars before they existed. Luca thinks that he drew the line earlier, but he doesn't hesitate to cross it. He tells Lei not to be reckless. This is a reconnaissance mission, and they will have to fight if they meet another force. Lei tells him not to be worried. Even if they can't beat them, seniors will help them. A team member says that the present exists because of the past, which helps them predict the future. If he looks at things that way, then many people are interested in history. Luca thinks that Claude doesn't come from a noble family, but still has a well-respected family. Claude tells Luca that he likes him and asks if he's seeing anyone. Luca considers it a threat and gets on the defense. Claude tells him not to be worried. He was thinking about introducing his little sister to him. Luca replies that he's from the orphanage. However, Claude says that it doesn't matter. The way things are, he'll end up as his superior. He says that his sister is cute as well. Lei nudges Luca and says he's quite popular. Suddenly, they sense something in their surroundings. They put on their helmet, and Lei says that his group will provide cover from the rear. Luca agrees and says that he'll fight in front. He looks ahead and sees a person standing in front of a shining object. He looks closely at the person and sees that he's a Korite paladin. The man notices their presence, and they try to hide themselves behind the trees. He then gets his weapon out and prepares to launch it. Luca screams at Claude to run. The man fires his weapon, piercing through Claude. The man calls back his weapon, and it comes back obediently. Luca sees Claude's corpse and thinks he was about to introduce his sister to him. He only remembers seeing the spear glow, and then Claude's upper body was gone. He tells his eye to calculate the trajectory of his weapon. However, his eyes keep showing errors in calculating it. Suddenly, someone fires shots at the man, but he defends himself with a shield. Luca's teammates tell him to get a grip on the situation. He shouldn't just stand there. He needs to fight and stall for time. Luca thinks that Lei is correct. If he tries to run, then he won't be able to escape this situation. The only way out of this is to fight him until the Imperial Guards get here. He knows that the Imperial Guard must be watching them just like the last time, so they will get here soon. The man readies his weapon and fires it at Luca in microseconds. He defends himself but gets hit in the face. His mask breaks and he thinks even stalling for seconds is too much. Within another fraction of a second, the man launches another attack at Luca. He looks at their spear and wonders if he'll die here. He then remembers his instructor's words that he would be slaughtered like a pig if he gave up. If they turn back on the enemy, then they receive a bullet to their head. If the enemy swings their blade, then they should do the same. Luca, now with determination, parries the attack. He thinks he needs to attack him first. An explosion takes place and his teammates worry for him. Luca's weapon splits into halves and gets impaled in the ground. He thinks he can't use his hand anymore. However, he managed to block the spear. Now, he needs to prepare for the next attack. The man uses his sword next to slice his opponent. Luca tries to dodge it, but his hands get chopped off. At the same time, the man deals with Lei and his two members. Lei's hand gets sliced off while others die from the slash. Luca thinks that he isn't going for him, but for his teammates instead. The man then dashes towards Luca to kill him, and Luca readies himself to face him head-on. At the same time, the Imperial Guard stationed there uses his booster to rush for their aid. He manages to catch up quickly, and sees Luca and the man going against each other. The Imperial Guard grabs the knight by the head and smashes him onto the ground. He then activates his booster and gives the knight a good taste of the ground. He smashes him against the arcane pillar, making a huge impact. Luca looks in astonishment at the amazing capabilities of an Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard soon emerges out of the shadow, looking fierce. Luca slumps down on the ground and feels relieved. As the Imperial Guard was leaving, the knight stood back. The guard looks back and sees that the knight is up for the next round. The guard takes out his weapon from the back and glares at him. Luca also approaches the fight scene. He thinks that he's wearing the weapon of Empire called Legion. Also, he's up against a holy knight of Karit who uses force powers. They start sparring again and Luca wonders which side will be stronger. They soon take the fight in the air and wreak destruction in the nearby forest. They both exchange blows after blows. Luca thinks that they are so fast that he can't even track their weapon with his eyes. He prays that the Imperial Guard will win this. The knight defends himself against the attack and destroys the Imperial Guard weapon in the counterattack. The guard then grabs the knight's face and uses his booster to send him to the ground. However, he doesn't budge and signals his weapon to be brought up. The spear which was impaled next to Luca begins to glow. He thinks that the Imperial Guard has no idea about the speed and power of the spear. He'll be unlikely to react to it. He believes if the Imperial Guard dies, then they all will die too. He has to do something now. As the spear leaps up, Luca uses his leg to change its trajectory and it cuts his leg. He hopes that the spear would miss the Imperial Guard. The guard notices the spear coming and stops it with his hand. He then smashes the knight on the ground, making a large explosion in the whole forest. Luca lays restless on the ground with his two limbs detached. He wonders if the Imperial Guard survived it. If the Karit knight killed him, then this would be his end. He prays that he makes it out alive. The Imperial Guard comes over to him and says he did a good job. He was able to take down the knight thanks to him. He asks if he has a wound on his abdomen. Luca replies he was hurt when he tried to dodge his force slash. The guard extends his hands and says that he'll assist him. They'll return to the base now. Luca thinks that Legion is full-body mechanical armor that the Empire bestows upon the Imperial Guards. They remove all the parts unnecessary for combat, creating an ultimate weapon. Every trainee dreams of receiving a Legion, as it's the testament of an Imperial Guard. He notices that the Imperial Guard saving him has his head missing. He can't believe how he's alive. He asks if he's a machine or a human. The Imperial Guard checks his head and sees that it's gone. He starts panicking over it. He slumps on the ground along with Luca. Luca says that he was striving to become a monster like this all the time. He thinks that his body is getting colder and wonders if he'll survive this. Lei shows up and asks if he's still alive. Luca is glad that he survived, and Lei says he managed it barely. He asks about other team members. Lei informs him that everyone else died. He asks how bad his wounds are, and Luca replies that he'll die soon. He asks Lei what he plans on doing now. If he looks ahead, he can see the life he wanted all the time. In that direction, he can find what isn't in the Empire. He's alright, and if he wants to go, then he should. The reinforcements will arrive soon. Once they meet them, they'll return to the Empire. He suggests Lei to go now, now. Lei gets up and starts leaving. Luca thinks about the time they spent together. When Lei told him about his dream, he saw him happiest of all time. He hopes Lei will live as he wished. However, Lei comes back and places a cloth on Luca's wound. Luca asks what he's doing. Lei replies that he was worried that he might die. There would be no way that he'd be able to live guilt-free if he died like this. Luca sighs and says that he's an idiot. Later, Luca makes a quick recovery and reads a book. Lei comes suddenly and asks if he's looking for new parts. He recommends him the F-24 model, which is better than what he was using before. Luca puts down the book and tells him to stop giving him surprises like that. Luca thinks that after he returned to the Empire and completed his treatment, he was called to different departments for investigation. They wanted to talk about the case where 3 cadets and an Imperial guard were killed. He thought they wanted to investigate further, but he was called for other reasons. Lei says that they found an artifact at the site where they went. There are plenty of arguments as to who has the ownership over it. Luca felt that as well. The floating cube was the reason that the Korite Knight showed up. He asks who's retrieving that cube. Lei replies that a specialist team is made for it. If the Holy Alliance refuses to give up historic sites and artifacts, it'll cause a huge war. If the Empire were to go to battle against Korra, then Balada would profit just by watching them fight. That's why small-scale battles are taking place, so they can tolerate losses. Luca says that he's not the type with brains. He fights when the order comes. That's what the Imperial Guards are supposed to do. When he reported that one team member's head blew off, the instructor said it was caused by the phantom phenomenon. However, he believes it was something more than that. There are still many questions left unanswered. He didn't look further because the headquarters would have refused them. The scene shifts to the visiting room where cadets meet with their friends and family. He never thought he would have to come here as he's an orphan. However, he's here because Claude's sister, Lily, called him. He wonders if she wants to question him about Claude's death, as he was the leader at that time. Lily says that she isn't here to express hatred towards him. The moment her brother became a member of the Imperial Guard, she was expecting such news to come eventually. She's here to see him for a different reason. Her brother talked a lot about him, saying that he was the best among the best. Claude asked her if she was interested in him. He must have heard it from him as well. Luca says that she seems to be quite interested in meeting him. She asks if there's something wrong with it. Luca says he doesn't know much about her and why she chose him. She replies that her dead brother asked her for it, so doesn't that make a good reason? She believes he'll benefit a lot from this. Plenty of people would be jealous of him. Luca thinks that he has no reason to refuse this offer. Getting an opportunity to marry a woman with a good background is a golden chance. If he can get married to a noble woman, then he'll get closer to his goal. However, he feels that this chance is too easy. That's why he feels more reluctant to refuse her offer. Luca apologizes and says he'll have to refuse the offer. He leaves the table and says goodbye like a Chad. He used to think that Lei had such a good background and found the idea of escaping the Empire stupid. However, he understands it now. He almost made a dumb mistake based on a feeling. He's sure that Lily will take this as an insult to a noble. He hopes nothing tiring will happen from this. Suddenly, Lily grabs Luca's hand, stopping him from going away. She says that she must have rushed it, so they should start with being friends. Luca replies that's not what he meant. She leaves quickly, saying she'll come back soon. He looks at his hands, which held Lily's hand. He thinks that it will be hard to get her off his back. Later, Luca goes into the physical training room. The instructor Kin says that he didn't expect him to show up. Luca says that he wants to learn from him. Kin says that if he wants to learn fighting, then there's nothing he can teach him. There are very few cadets he remembers that surpass his skills. Luca says that there are still people stronger than him. He's not satisfied with being the best among cadets. Kin says that there's no need to rush himself. Luca thinks that he got his new arm, which is 10 times stronger than the previous one, but he still lacks full body augmentation. If he can't win against an opponent like Kin, then he won't stand a chance against someone as strong as Korra Knights. He thanks Kin for this opportunity, and Kin replies that he left him no other choice. Kin tells him to bring it on, and Luca brings in a fist. Kin blocks his attack and asks if he wants to test his new arm. Luca thinks that he's a retired Imperial Guard and wouldn't have flinched from these attacks. He begins a full-on assault on Kin. He thinks he needs to jump to close the distance and finish things quickly with a strike. Luca grabs Kin's arm and prepares to use his other fist. He believes he will win this time. However, Kin, being more experienced, tosses him into the air. Luca wonders why he's in the air. His attack should have struck him. He rushes again and says that this won't stop him. However, Kin grabs his kick and tosses him back into the air. He rolls on the ground and wonders what just happened. Kin says that he failed to gauge the strength of his opponent. He let his mind get distracted by something else during the fight. He asks why he's in such a rush. Luca thinks his first attack should have struck Kin's chin. However, as soon as Kin touched his arm, he felt delusional. His body staggered and lost control. He couldn't understand what just happened. Kin says that it's his self-defense method. Luca gets up suddenly and asks if he could learn that too. Kin shows him his shivering hand and asks if he still wants to learn it. There's always a price to shortcut. cuts. He asks Luca what he learned from that battle. Luca replies that he felt his body moved on its own and got out of control. Kin says that his type of method is called Archi's combat. Luca says that it sounds like a move that a thug will use. Even though the name is weird, the move is good and should be implemented in the military. Kin says that they considered it, but this method had 3 problems. Luca correctly guesses first that it's hard to learn, and Kin says that he's smart. He asks what he thinks about others. Luca guesses that the brain problem he's experiencing must be one of the side effects. Kin says that he can't tell him the last reason. Luca says that he's willing to take risks to learn it. He tells him not to do that, as he's already an asset to the Empire. Does he know how much money has been poured into him? He says that Archi's combat causes brain problems. If he teaches it to him, he'll have to take responsibility. Luca thinks that it's a good opportunity, but he'll know if he lies. Luca says he can't promise him, but he'll do his best not to use it. Kin pats his shoulder and says he likes his honesty. Later, Kin tosses Luca away, stating that he should anticipate all kinds of attacks from him. He should be ready for any situation. He tells Luca to get up, saying he likes fast learners. Later, Lei gets concerned for Luca and asks if he's getting proper sleep. Luca, with dark circles under his eyes, says that he's busy these days. He thinks it has been almost 1 month since he started sparring with Kin daily. He kept saying that he needed to watch and learn on his own. The Archi's combat method was vastly different from what he had learned. Most combat methods focus on honing a skill, while Archi's combat seems to make the most out of his other skills. It feels like a superior combat algorithm, and he gets to pick the efficient fighting methods in seconds. He asks Lei how his mission was. Lei replies that it was boring. He only had to get rid of a malfunctioning android. All the recent missions he has been receiving are like child's play. Luca says that Karit is being careful after the last incident. Lei says that's not the case. He heard some stuff from his family. Luca asks if Chief Centurion steps in, then won't it be a rebellion? Lei agrees that a group of people plotted a rebellion, but he doesn't have the details. Luca thinks that they are already at war with the Karit Alliance, and now some idiot wants to start a civil war. Lei says that if he calls these problems stupid, then he'll rot from inside. Luca pins him against the wall and says he can overlook it if he wants to leave the Empire. However, if he wishes to be an enemy of the Empire, then he can't leave. Lei says he won't do that as he passed the test for the Imperial Guard. He suggests him to calm down first. Luca suggests that he doesn't make statements that incite suspicion. He doesn't want to see his name on the rebel list. Lei says that he only talks about this in front of him. He should lighten up a bit and he'll treat him with food this weekend. Luca says that he has plans and he shouldn't talk to him as he's annoying. Lei follows him and asks if he has plans with a girl. Later, Kin and Luca go to the lower sector in disguise. Kin says that he must be familiar with this place as they both came from here. Luca says that he never expected to come back here once he became a trainee. He sees 2 idiots fighting and thinks that Kin didn't tell him that they would be coming here. The city is foul. All the waste and heat is released in the lower sector. In his childhood, he knew he had to get out of there because he would have ended up being a loser. Kin tells him to follow him along. Kin takes him to the black market and he asks if this is his first time. Luca says that there were quite a few kids who never came back after visiting this place. He feels that Instructor Kin is quite knowledgeable about the lower sector's layout. Also, Kin ordered him to use low-energy prosthetic arms and legs. He wonders what he's planning. Suddenly, Kin tells him to get ready. They approach the entrance and 2 men stop them from entering. Kin says that he just needs to talk with the supervisor of this establishment. The man asks if he knows their boss. However, Kin replies that he doesn't know him. The man then points his gun at him, telling him to scram off. At that moment, Luca tackles the man onto the ground. The other man, after seeing intruders, reaches for his gun. However, Luca takes the apprehended man's gun and points at him. The man raises his hand, and Kin says that he must understand now the situation they are in. Can he bring his boss now? The man takes his buddy inside, and Luca asks what he would have done if he wasn't fast enough. Kin replies that he would have searched for another way. Luca asks what this place is. Kin says that this is the hottest place in the whole empire. It's called the Colosseum. Soon, Kin and Luca meet the boss of the building. The boss is a rich, chubby guy. Kin points to Luca and says they should put him in a match. He doesn't need a cut and is fine if he dies. Luca wonders if this was the reason he told him to use a low-output body. The boss suddenly flicks his cigarette at them, and Luca catches it before it hits Kin. The guards standing beside the boss points their guns at them. The boss says that they didn't let them in to grant their wish. They called them here because it's easy to dispose of corpses in a room. Luca thinks that he's bluffing. If he didn't want to hear them out, he wouldn't have called them here. He analyzes that 3 people are aiming in front of them. Plus, there are 2 armed gang members outside the room. If a fight breaks out, he'll flip the table first, causing confusion and panic in them. He'll then strike the boss. He'll snatch his gun and take him as hostage. He'll then dispatch the 2 guards in front. The other 2 standing outside would rush in. He would take them out by a surprise attack. Luca analyzes all of that in a few seconds. Kin asks what happened to the previous owner. The boss asks if he knows Torah. He died as he was caught rigging matches. However, Kin says that he killed Torah and took over this profitable business. They were old friends, but he can't be blamed either. Tora killed the previous owner just like he killed him. It's a natural occurrence in the streets. The boss points his gun at Kin's head and asks how he knows all of this. Kin tells him to calm down unless he wants to end up next to Tora. The boss puts his gun away and signals his boys to do that as well. He asks if he needs to put that brat into a match. He analyzes the suit Luca is wearing. His arms and legs aren't combat models, and his body is organic. He believes he'd be crushed in a few seconds. The boss says that he could put him in a match, but he needs to offer him something in return. Kin says that he knows where Tora kept his safe, and he has eyes on it. The boss asks how much he knows. He's now getting curious about his identity. Kin replies that he's just an old man that he doesn't need to worry about. The boss offers special treatment to Kin, and Kin says that he doesn't need to give any special treatment to the kid. He should just pair him up with his best guys. Luca thinks that he took control of the situation without moving a muscle. He needs to learn these skills from him. The scene shifts to the Coliseum waiting room. Kin destroys the CCTV camera and says that they have 2 hours before the match. Luca asks what's in Tora's safe, which changed the boss's attitude. Kin replies that it's a treasure that could change his life. Luca asks what he intended to do if a fight broke out back then. Kin replies that he'll explain after he wins his fight. He shows him his opponent, who's a man covered in steel. These idiots use illegal mods at the cost of their lifespan. They are the type of guys who don't worry about their future. Luca, you might die if you get hit a single time. Kin says that he'll reveal some secret sauce about Arky's combat method. That sauce is he needs to be satisfied with what he has. He explains that he needs to change his form as water changes itself. He was watching him deflect the bullets without a ballistic predictor. He was surprised when he asked him to be the mentor. He came to the right person to learn that stuff. Luca says that he's just giving him praise. Kin pats his shoulder and says, "This is right. This could be the last time that he sees him." Luca gives him a nervous smile in return. Soon, the stadium gets ready for the battle. People throw stuff at Luca, calling him an idiot to challenge Steel Fist on his first match. The commentator asks the audience if he would be able to go home in one piece. He's a brat with the name of Good Boy. People shun him down, asking who let an idiot like him in. Some people go crazy over the idea of seeing a slaughter show today. Luca thinks that a human's dark desire is to see others suffer in pain. They must want to see his limbs torn off and his face mutilated. He thinks that this is not bad. He can sense he has finally returned home. The scene shifts to Luca's past life. He was never on a full stomach as a kid. An official of the Empire would stop by twice a month to send supplies, but the principal would take half of them. Thus, starvation became natural in orphanages. Even though he was starving, he never stopped training. He read every book filled with dust and lifted rusted chunks of iron to strengthen his muscles. Some boys threw paper at Luca while he was exercising. They ask if he's dumb. He's wasting his energy and will get hungry soon. Luca replies that he can get more food with his power if he's hungry. He defeated all the kids and came to realize that the strong eats the weak in this world. Other kids ask how he can do this to them. They run away, saying that he'll stay as a low-lying orphan like them. However, Luca didn't care about the cries of those losers. At the age of 12, he got his name on the list of potential Imperial Guard trainees. At 15, he officially became an Imperial Guard. Those losers couldn't believe that he was selected for Imperial Guards. He hoped that he would never meet losers like them. He forgot about that place and thought he wouldn't have to return here. The Steel Fist soon shows up to the arena. He wonders why he got matched with this kid. The boss must have smoked something weird today. However, it doesn't matter as he'll crush him today. He thinks that Gabrielle, or the Steel Fist, has limbs from different manufacturers, which makes his body asymmetrical and unbalanced. His spine is curved from the loads of modification. The parts of his flesh that are in contact with metal suffer from constant inflammation. He probably can't sleep without painkillers. However, he's powerful. He modified his body for the sole purpose of being stronger. Gabriel says that his face doesn't look bad and asks if he would like to serve him tonight. Luca replies that he'll indeed need a servant from now on, as he'll become crippled today. This greatly annoys Gabriel, and he says he'll bash his face into the ground until he becomes his servant. The boss, who's the commentator, says that the match will now begin. Will the boy be crushed or triumph today? Luca thinks that his body is modified solely for combat, while he's using non-combat parts. That means he'll die instantly from one strike. Gabriel goes for the punch, but Luca sidesteps and lands a kick on his face. Gabriel asks if that's supposed to tickle him. Luca thinks that with his normal body, he would have been smashed into pieces. Luca steps back, creating distance between them. He thinks that the stadium is cramped, so he can't keep running away. Gabriel starts punching him, and Luca dodges them. He thinks that Gabriel's attacks are lethal, while his attacks do nothing. The audience is in an uproar. telling the boy to attack instead of dodging. Luca thinks he's caught up in a tough situation. He wonders what Kin wanted from him when he brought him here. Wishing for his powerful body won't solve anything. He needs to fight with what little he has. He thinks that Kin took the limbs from him, but he allowed him to have his eyes. This means Kin doesn't expect him to overpower Gabriel with sheer strength. He activates his eye's power and gauges Gabriel's weakness. He knows that his fists are like a cannon. He calculates everything about his attack and sees that it's slow compared to the real gun. Plus, its trajectory is obvious. The audience gets shocked and a smile grows on Kin's face. He thinks that Luca is a genius. Luca experienced Akri's combat style with his own talent. All he needs to do now is show his potential here. Gabriel has a hard time killing the kid. Even the audience asks what he's doing. He should just kill him already. Luca feels that his focus is at its peak. It feels good that he can predict his attacks. He wonders if he could do the same thing that Kin did to him. He grabs Gabriel's hand and gets behind him by using his momentum. He kicks Gabriel in the face, sending him back. A broad smile appears on Luca's face and he feels excited. He wonders if this was how Kin was observing him. Gabriel says that he doesn't know what sorcery he used, but his attacks are feeble. Luca dodges the attack and asks if he thinks that his attacks don't work on him. Luca places his hand on his neck while Gabriel's hand remains stuck in the wall. He thinks he lacks pure power, so he needs to make up for it with something else. He envelops Gabriel's neck and starts twisting it. He twists his neck 180 degrees and defeats Gabriel. He says that people like him can wish for his demise forever. However, he'll just climb higher, where their words won't reach him. After defeating Gabriel, Luca thinks that he wouldn't be able to concentrate if this was a battleground with many variables. Since this was a controlled environment, he was able to predict his moves. He gets ready to leave the ring, and the crowd looks at him in shock. Luca thinks that Kin is a great teacher. Kin greets him and says he did a great job. He welcomes him into the Archi's combat style. Luca says that he realized that accepting one's situation doesn't mean they lose. Kin hands him a credit chip, and Luca asks if this is the payout for the fight. However, Kin says that's not the case. This is for Gabriel's hospital bills, so he should give it to him. It's not a bad idea to show some generosity. Luca says that he wants to be a warrior, not a Samaritan. He pats Luca's head and says he's naive in reading interpersonal relationships. The kindness he's talking about is not charity, but investment. They build it up for the future so they can use it. Today, he reaped his investments in Torah. He shouldn't forget that creating an advantageous environment for oneself is the mark of a good soldier. Luca feels that he was mistaken for Kin. He thought Kin was impressed by his talents and thus taught him. However, one day Kin will seek to reap what he invested in him, especially in a way he can't refuse. The scene shifts to the hospital where the doctor is analyzing Gabriel's spine. They say his spinal wavelength isn't compatible with his cybernetic body. His current body draws so much power that it freezes up. He recommends going for the Xionic Hyper 9 model. Gabriel says that's the newest model and he couldn't afford it. He says that everyone walks around fine with garbage tech. The doctor replies that folks don't undergo heavy modification like him. If he had considered the compatibility, an older model would have done the job. Gabriel says he was poor back then and slapped whatever he could get. A person steps in while Gabriel cusses at the doctor for removing his expensive parts. Luca asks how he's doing. He's looking as energetic as ever. Gabriel gets angry and shouts at him that he'll kill him at all costs. Luca replies that he warned him before the fight that he'll cripple him. Luca thinks he followed Kin's advice, but taunted Gabriel instinctively. Luca asks if they mentioned the Hyper 9 model. He shows him his card and asks if this amount would be sufficient, and the doctor agrees. Gabriel screams and asks what he's doing. Luca replies that he's simply paying his hospital bills. He asks the reason for such generosity, and Luca replies that he just feels like doing it. Gabriel says that his name Good Boy was true after all. He says that couldn't be his real name and asks for it. Luca then tells him his real name. Gabriel says that if he needs his help, then he could ask him. He'll repay him this debt. Luca thinks that this feeling isn't bad. At the physical training ground, Luca and Lei are sparring once again. Luca easily blocks the attack and tosses Lei back. Lei accepts his defeat as he clutches his ribs. He later asks if he learned Archi's combat method from instructor Kin, and Luca agrees. Lei asks if doesn't thugs hold glass shards between their fingers or throw dirt at the enemy's eyes. Luca says it's hard to believe, but that's what Kin told him. Luca thinks that the experience in the Colosseum was enough to shake the foundation of his combat. It feels like all the techniques he practiced are condensed into a single drop of knowledge. Lei thinks that Luca seems happier than usual. Lei says if he isn't busy, then could he help him out, and Luca agrees. Lei takes Luca to the visiting room. Luca asks what's the meaning of this. Why did he bring Lily and him here? Lei apologizes and says his family is on good terms with hers, so he couldn't refuse. Lily says that she applied to visit him several times, but he keeps avoiding her. Luca replies that he is not interested. He hopes that she understands it as well. Lei asks Luca to say things more politely. However, Luca says that the situation already pisses him off. Lily asks why he hates her so much. Luca, like an ultra-giga Chad, replies that he doesn't have time to meet a woman. Unlike her, he's from an orphanage, and he needs to climb the ladder. She asks if won't he benefit if he marries her. Luca replies that she doesn't understand him. If he were to rely on the power of a noble, then he would lose everything he worked for. He intends to climb with his abilities. Lily asks, why is he close to Lei then? Luca replies that he's a friend, and someone to whom he can entrust his life in combat. Lily asks if he doesn't intend to give her a single chance. Luca thinks for a while and gets up. He hopes that he won't visit her again. He soon leaves after. Lei follows him from behind and says that he doesn't have to be so harsh. Luca replies that if he wasn't harsh, she would have clung to him. Lei says that he isn't wrong, but why does he dislike Lily so much? Luca replies that he isn't sure why Lily likes him. She's approaching a nobody like him just because Claude said good things about him. She has to be scheming something. Lei asks if he's just scared because he doesn't know why. If he takes things slow, then he'll understand. Luca suddenly asks if he likes Lily, and Lei's face turns pale. Lei asks what makes him think of it. Luca replies that his gaze, breathe, and how panicked he is tells him everything. In any case, he isn't interested. If he likes her, then he can go after her. Luca leaves the scene and Lei thinks that it's impossible for him to love her. The scene shifts to Kin and Luca meditating over a melting volcano. Luca thinks he needs to remain calm regardless of the situation. He asks Kin how he thought about resolving the fight if it broke out in that office. He thinks that there were armed thugs inside and outside the office. He couldn't see a way to get out of there unscathed without a weapon. He wonders what instructor Kin would have done. Kin says that he would have ducked under the table if the fight started. Luca says that they all had guns. If his first move was to hide, then he'd lose any chance to attack. Kin says that he would have taken that opportunity to take them down, even if it meant taking a few bullets. Luca asks what he would have done if he wasn't there, or decided to run or hide. Kin says that he was planning to take the boss hostage and take his gun. He knew how he would have taken them down. However, if he did took him as hostage, he would have just gotten shot together. They don't care if their boss change. If he had become a target for those guns, he'd have taken them down and escaped with him through a secret passage. Luca thinks that he predicted his action, and also had a secret escape route in his mind. He can't fathom his scope of consideration. Kin gets up and says that Archies means keen eyes. Archies combat uses all possible resources of the brain to amplify insight. Luca asks if the problem was a side effect of pushing his brain to its limits. Luca suddenly comes to a realization and asks if he equips Legion, then he won't be able to use Archies combat. Kin replies that he's sharp. He thought it would take him months to figure that out. He'll be bestowed a Legion once he becomes an Imperial Guard. No one can wear Legion constantly. It's a cybernetic that utilizes high-bandwidth memory signals and requires all resources of the brain to use it. This means he won't have extra resources to spend on Archies combat with the Legion. Luca thinks that Kin hid this from him, knowing he would react to it. If he knew this was the case, then he wouldn't have learned it. Luca leaves and thanks him for all the teaching. Kin sighs and asks if this is how it all ends. He can come back when he changes his mind. Fast forward to 3 months later, Luca is called into the office by Chief Centurion, Heil. He says that he was quite busy, so he didn't have a chance to meet the trainees. He asks how he has been doing. Luca replies that he has been training on his own as he doesn't have missions assigned. Heil says that he won't receive any proper mission for a while. He's already good enough to act as a real force for them. He also heard that he has been interacting with Instructor Kin. Luca wonders if this is why he called him. The higher-ups would have probably figured out everything. His visit from the lower sector to participation in the Colosseum. Heil asks if he's training to use Archies combat. Luca replies that he's not training in it anymore. Heil guesses that he's the one who quit it. Luca says that Archies combat cannot be used with Legion, so it's meaningless for someone in the Imperial Guard. Heil is impressed that he figured that out already. Those who lack talent are thrown out by Kin. Those who have talent soon realize they have no reason to learn it. This is why Kin is a solo user of Archies combat in the Imperial Guard. Luca asks if he wants him to keep learning it then. Heil says that he wants him to be on good terms with Kin, so he should continue to learn it. This is an order he must follow. Luca wonders if Chief is wary of Kin. Why is he on such a high alert against a soldier who retired from combat? He can't ask questions here because his life could be put at risk if he knows the details. Luca replies that he'll continue to learn Archies combat, and Heil says he'll watch him closely. After all, he's the type to climb high. The scene shifts to the lower sector. Kin, while holding a toy, says that he didn't expect him to return so quickly, as he told him to come back any time, so he wouldn't ask any further questions. Luca thought he might not teach him again, but he agreed easily. Luca asks why they are in the lower sector today. Kin answers his question with another question. He asks why kids buy these toys. He asks the owner for a toy, but he tells Kin to look for it himself. Kin tells the shop owner to deliver all the toys to him. Luca wonders what his motive is behind buying all these toys. Later, Kin takes Luca to an orphanage. He instructs Luca to put the box in the inner field, and then he should take a break. Gabriel, while carrying boxes, shouts why he has called him for this. Does he look like a bellboy to him? Luca replies that he told him to call him whenever he needed help. Gabriel says what he meant was to call him for something grander and bigger, maybe a fight against another gang. Luca says that he doesn't need his help in a fight. Luca looks at him and thinks that the new spine implant improved his body balance. Gabriel asks Luca who that man is. He heard that he was so infamous that even the boss couldn't stand up to him. Luca says that he would keep his nose out unless he wants to lose his head. He believes this is an orphanage where Kin grew up. He's doing charity because he made it out of here. Soon enough, the kids rush toward their gift. They call Gabriel an ugly guy while Luca a handsome bro. Gabriel thinks that kids don't have manners these days. Luca sees two kids fighting for boxes between themselves. He thinks they need to learn to conquer with power. If there's something they want, they need to strengthen themselves. This world isn't bountiful for everyone to be happy. Kin points behind and says they need to talk. He tells Luca that he stops at the lower sector from time to time. The principal smuggles out supplies sent for orphans as his pay isn't high. Luca asks if he grew up here. Kin says that he has forgotten such things. He just stops at nearby orphanages occasionally. He might have visited the one where he grew up. Luca thinks that Kin looks like a retired soldier. He wonders if his future will be like this too if he uses Arky's combat. Kin says that they will get to the point then. He asks who ordered him to come back to him. Was it Captain Heil? Luca tries to stay calm and asks what he means by that. He wonders how he knew that the orders came from Chief Heil. He wonders if Kin is truly dangerous, that Captain Heil is keeping an eye on him. He wonders if he might get eliminated now. Kin tells him to calm down if he wants to live. If he tries to attack him with strength, then it would be hard to restrain him without killing him. Luca, feeling terrified, says that he's a soldier of the Empire. Kin says that he knows so little that he isn't sure in which direction he should stick. He isn't to be blamed, he's just following the superior's orders. When he came to him first, did he think that he came of his own free will? When he performed the projectile trajectory manipulation, the higher-ups started making preparations. There was only one who could learn Arky's combat from him. He might think that he came on his own to get stronger, but it was all calculated by the Empire to meet him. Luca tells himself not to be swayed by Kin's words. He came to him of his own free will. Kin says that every man in this world is someone's slave. They either know it or don't. Kin says that he probably wants to run away from the truth as he's still young. He advises him to head back and report to Heil if he feels like it. Luca now remains with more questions than ever. Just like Kin said, Heil told him to continue learning Arky's combat. Luca starts questioning his ideology and tries to resist Kin's words. The scene shifts to the simulation training room. Luca is sitting alone on a bench. He curses himself for not reporting to Heil about what happened that day. If he did, then they would have made him go through a psychological exam. If he was found with a poor score, then they would have considered his ideology infected. The Empire doesn't forgive those with dangerous ideologies. In worst-case scenarios, he could be sent to the labor camps. He wonders if Kin planned it all so that he wouldn't be able to reveal this fact. Soon enough, Lei emerges out from a pod. He pants heavily after getting out of it. Suddenly, someone tosses a water bottle at him and he catches it. Luca says that he's glad to see him training. Lei replies that he's working hard after he lost to him. He asks if he came all the way here to cheer him. However, Luca says that he has a request. He asks if the prestigious families rigged the aptitude tests. Lei replies that it's a well-known secret. However, the unqualified don't make it past the training. Luca asks how they judge someone in psychological tests. If he knows the secret, then he wants to hear it. Lei says that it's dangerous to ask for that info. Luca says that there's no one here and he's doing this for the sake of the Empire. Lei says that he won't ask any further questions then. He tells him to create a simpler version of his ego and place his true beliefs somewhere else. Luca wonders what he means by that. It doesn't make sense. Lei says that people lose their memory or change personalities after trauma. In simple words, he needs to replicate that consciously, since the brain lives in a constant state of confusion, so he can keep the ego of a loyal soldier on the surface of his mind. He also did the same thing for 2 months and it worked perfectly. If he keeps it up for long, then he might forget his true identity. Luca thinks that he needs to pretend to be his past self, the one who didn't meet Lei and Kin. Lei advises him to be careful about what he's trying to do. Messing with the psychological exam is dangerous. Luca grows nervous as Lei rarely says those things. Suddenly, Luca gets a call from Kin, and he thinks it came at a bad time. Kin once again takes Luca to the lower sector. Kin says that today's mission will be simple. Luca thinks that Kin is still treating him the same way as he did earlier. It seems like that incident never happened at the orphanage. This makes him feel worse. Kin says that there are a lot of gang members inside this building and he has 20 seconds to take them all down. Luca understands his instruction and reaches for the door. He crushes the lock by force and enters the building. Inside, some people are playing cards while some are chilling. Luca enters the room and a man looks at him annoyingly. The man approaches Luca and asks what he wants. He doesn't look like a customer. Luca thinks that this idiot walked right up with a gun. Other than that, there are 3 armed thugs, and there's also a leader with scars on his face. He could sense that there's a person in the bathroom as well. The man points his gun at Luca and says that he wasn't planning to take on a kid's head in the morning. Luca punches him immediately and sends him into the air. Luca thinks that a lot of things are going on in his mind, and now he can finally let off some steam. The man gets impaled on the ceiling and he lets go of his gun. The other man pulls out their gun and gets ready to shoot. Luca takes hold of the falling gun and quickly dispatches all the lackeys. The leader also fires his gun, telling him to die. Luca dodges the shot and thinks that he has a shitty aim. He can't believe that trash like them is making a living by killing people. Luca points his gun at him and finishes him off. The person comes out of the bathroom and wonders what's going on. When he looks forward, he sees all his buddies dead. Luca points his gun at him and says that he would have knocked himself unconscious if he had been in his place. The man looks at the electric weapon he's holding and questions his life decisions. He decides that it's best to electrocute himself and does it. Luca thinks that he could still sense a presence in the washroom. When he enters inside, he sees a girl tied up in the corner. He gets agitated and calls them morons. Luca brings the girl out with him, and Kin congratulates him on finishing the job in 12 seconds. Luca asks if can't they kill everyone in this building. However, Kin says that if they interfere anymore, it will disrupt the rules of this place. He's well aware of the fact that countless people aren't able to defend themselves. This woman suffered the same fate because she didn't possess the strength to defy them. Similarly, he struggled for power so that he didn't end up like her. Luca thinks that after saving the girl that day, Kin kept taking him to lower sectors and pushed him into fights without prior information. He believes that Kin was teaching him to adjust to any situations he was thrown into. Identifying opponent capabilities and interpreting the surroundings are the necessities of combat. Luca defeats all the men that he encounters each day. Luca and Kin then make a stop at the repair shop. The girl welcomes them and asks what they would like. Kin says that he wants a cup of coffee with oil on top. Luca says that he would also like a coffee with no oil. Luca asks if there is a need to stop at Gilda's workshop. Kin replies that she's a woman that he saved. Doesn't he feel pride seeing her work hard? Luca explains that she was kidnapped and endured all sorts of horrible things for several months. But thankfully, her mind was intact, and she returned to everyday life. She was kidnapped because her friends stayed at her place when a gang was pursuing her. Kin says that Gilda is from an orphanage. She had talent in mechanical engineering as a child, so he funded her education. Luca asks if he's acquainted with her from the start. Suddenly, Gabriel comes in and asks if he comes here too. Good boy. Gabriel orders a beer, and Gilda suggests he pass on alcohol as he has strained his system from overworking. Luca thinks that Gabriel became her bodyguard after Kin introduced him to her. Luca tells Gabriel to listen to her mechanic, but Gabriel complains that it's only 1 beer. Gilda soon brings their order. Gabriel asks why they are poking beehives left and right. The gang boss is planning to make a move against them. If they proceed with that, then he isn't sure that he can protect Gilda. Kin tells him not to worry as they won't be able to come here for a while. Gilda asks how long and what exactly is he planning. Kin replies that it could be a couple of months or a few years. He doesn't know. Luca wonders if he won't be able to come to lower sectors then. He hopes this wouldn't be the last time he would see them. Even after such a terrible event, Gilda came to reality and began to work again. Gabriel still continues to take more risks while working in his field. He tells himself not to pity them. He thinks that not being able to come here is the best thing. The scene shifts to the chief centurion's office. Luca reports all the things that happened till now. Heil comments that Kin continues to perform peculiar activities. Kin became a trainee at a later age. Normally they wouldn't have allowed it, but the Empire needed members at that time. Even he's unsure what kind of man Kin is. When he became a fresh recruit, he became a key member of the Imperial Guard. They presume he specializes in secret operations. Luca wonders if Heil doesn't have any info on his plans. Heil says that Kin has taken a liking to him. He sent trainees to him before, but they never lasted long. He's excellent, but also vulnerable to negative influence. So, they will schedule a psychological exam for him. Luca agrees to the request and thinks that this ended up happening. Heil says that there are only two outcomes from the test. Either they are eliminated, or they rise to become an Imperial Guard. He hopes he'll end up as the latter one, and Luca replies that he simply follows orders. Luca asks if he could vouch for him if he passes the test. Heil says that he'll adopt him if he finds his results satisfactory. He asks if that sounds nice, and Luca remains astonished. Luca, while taking the exam, still can't believe that the chief centurion wants to adopt him. His family is the most renowned one in the Empire. The robot says that they will now conduct the psychological exam. He asks if something nice happened to him as he's smiling. Luca replies that it's none of his business, and he should start the exam. The scene shifts to Lei practicing with a punching bag. He smashes the bag and sends it flying in the air. After the practice session, Lei applies ointment to his joints. Luca asks if he's the same Lei he once knew. He's practicing like hell now. Lei asks if he passed the psychological exam, and Luca replies he did, thanks to his advice. He asks Lei if he needs any help with anything. Lei says he'll need a favor in the future, but he can't tell him now. Luca says that he'll risk his life if he finds him in danger during combat, and Lei thanks him for it. Lei says that he'll tell him about it soon, and hopes it doesn't go how he thought about it. Luca thinks that he won't probe any further into Lei's matter. He thinks he has earned Heil's trust, and now his new objective is to become a son of Heil's family. Heil calls everyone and says they will now operate under a special military order. The purpose is to suppress the rebels who have risen against the Empire. The rebel forces consist of 3 families led by the Raminus family. Luca, shocked, wonders if he's really referring to that family. Luca knows that Lily is from that family, and he now figures out what favor Lei was asking earlier. The trainees soon start boarding the ship for the mission. Once everyone has entered it, the ship takes off. Luca introduces himself and says that he'll be the leader of this army platoon. Everyone salute Luca as the platoon leader. Luca thinks that the higher-ups are now using trainees as platoon leaders to train them. The platoon consists of 27 people, and Sergeant Rack is the vice leader. Luca thinks they are still inexperienced while their opponents are experienced veterans. He has to display his worth, otherwise they won't listen to a superior whom they can't trust. He thought of 2 actions. First was to leave things to Sergeant Rack. Even if he gives vague orders, he'll take care of it. However, Luca thinks that he'll go with the other method this time. He says that he's superior to them. So, they need to follow his orders, and any disobedience would be considered a punishable offense. He thinks that he needs to crush the resistance they have toward him with force. The vice commander advises Luca to have a second with him. However, Luca grabs his hands and throws him away. He asks how he dared to lay hands on the superior without permission. Do they take him for a fool because of his age? Even though he grew up in slums, he's now a commander. Do they know why there's such a huge difference in their social standing? The reason is simple. He's superior to them. They may not understand now, but he's better suited to be a leader than anyone else. Rack gets up and apologizes for his mistake. Luca thinks that Rack's understanding is astute. He realized that he didn't pick the easy way out. They soon arrive at the Imperial Army outpost. All the team assembles in a room for the final mission brief. Lei asks if he beat his vice commander because he couldn't hold back his temper. Luca replies that they were treating him as a child, but Lei says that they are still children in their eyes. Soon the projector opens and they become attentive. Heil says that they will skip the formalities. He says that the rebels are stationed at the relic site of arcane civilization, and all arcane fortress operations are under their command. The fort has a high-density force barrier and turrets to shoot down aerial targets. There are 5 of these turrets. The 11th Brigade is tasked with leading the attack and destroying them. After that, the rest of the army will rush from all sides. Luca thinks that the armored brigade uses full body armor for all its members. He believes their empire is using a large force in this suppression. Heil says that the operation will begin in 1 hour and 30 minutes, so they should finish their preparations by then. Later, Lei and Luca go for a chat. Luca complains about how they are acting as support once again. Lei asks if he's crazy. They will die if they battle in front. Lei was about to ask something when Luca asks if he's talking about the Ramonis family. He might be close to them, but there's nothing they can do about it. If he sides with them, then even his family won't be able to save him. Lei says that he isn't hoping for miracles. He just hopes to rescue Lily at least. Luca asks if he's putting his life on the line for her, but Lei says that she was his first love. Luca asks why he tried to hook him with his love then, and Lei replies that Lily doesn't want to marry a noble. Luca says that he overlooked his antics till now, but this crosses the line. Saving Lily is dangerous. He'll be executed if he gets caught. He leaves Lei, suggesting him not to do anything stupid. Lei says all right and turns away. Luca thinks that Lei is an idiot. He'll try to save Lily at all costs. He thinks that Lily must die for his sake. He hopes that happens in the chaos and Lei never meets her. This is what he desperately wishes for. Later, Luca is sitting in the vehicle and thinks that only head and chest matters. As long as those two areas are intact, the soldiers of the Empire can't die. The Empire has the cybernetic technology to revive them in that case. Rack approaches Luca, and Luca asks what he wants to say. Rack says that he's thoroughly aware of his capabilities and checked the expertise of his superiors as well. He asks Luca to heed his words, as he served for 10 years in the Empire. He may not be as capable as him, but his skills aren't worthless. Luca tells him not to worry. He'll listen if the suggestion is valid. Rack thanks him in return. The vehicles soon approach the fortified city. A vehicle opens up, and soldiers in full body armor come out. These models are called Myrmidon. Luca thinks that this is what full-body mechanical armor looks like. They are tasked with taking down the turrets, and then it will be their turn to step in. The soldiers charge up their booster and fly into the air. They all go straight for the fort. One soldier drops missiles while flying in the air. Another soldier dashes forward and strikes at the shield with his long spear. Many soldiers do the same and create a huge explosion. Through their combined effort, they finally break through the defense. Luca sees that they have successfully breached the fort. Now, they have to neutralize the turrets. If they fail, then they'll be at a disadvantage. If that happens, then they will have to march in and bear the cost. Luckily, the soldiers neutralize all the turrets. Everyone cheers in excitement on seeing it. Luca thinks that he likes this kind of adrenaline rush that war gives. He would have gone insane if it hadn't been this. They put on their helmet and say that it's time to leave. Their plan is to march the base from all directions and kill every rebel. This base also has a fortress-like maze that stretches over 100 meters deep. They have a map of the interior, but the rebels might have changed it. The soldiers rush forward while dodging the shots fired at them. Luca thinks that they narrowed the entrance so that Myrmidon couldn't enter it. Luca soon enters the building and peeks from a corner. He sees an empty hallway in front. Luca says that he'll head from here, but Rack says that it's too dangerous. It could be rigged with traps or an ambush. Luca asks if he's afraid of dealing with consequences if he dies, and Rack agrees. Luca says that he doesn't care what happens after he dies. Luca dashes forward and says that he'll lead from here. Rack feels that his teammates are so annoyed that they will gun him down. He tells himself to focus on the mission. Luca thinks that he needs to reach Lily before Lei and eliminate her. He thinks that Lei must be in tunnels at a different point. He believes he's using soldiers as expendable to advance. He can do the same by sacrificing his men, but he can't let his emotions do it. As Luca was rushing forward, a trap activated over his head. His teammates rush forward for his aid. However, Luca cuts through the trap. Luca thinks that he pushed his sense to the limit, thanks to the Archies combat he learned. On top of that, his taste even got better. He could sense traces of chemicals in the air with his tongue. Luca speeds up through the passage while dodging all the traps. His teammates can't believe what they are witnessing. Luca feels his heart beating louder, and the blood is rushing like crazy. He feels frustrated on how slow his men are. Luca can also feel that the prolonged use of Archies combat gradually damages the brain. Luca soon meets a blocked entrance in his path. Behind the door, a few men ready their guns. Luca kicks the door, injuring one of the men. They began firing their gun at Luca, and he deflects every bullet with his sword. Luca then rushes forward while dodging every one of their attacks. He slices a person's head and throws his falling head at the enemy. Luca then runs forward and kills the man. The last remaining man fires a RPG at him. However, Luca cuts right through it. The man can't believe that he cut it. Luca unleashes his monster version and kills the man. Luca's teammates soon arrive at the scene and see that he killed everyone single-handedly. Luca asks what they are waiting for. They need to move forward. He tells them to keep up with him. As they move forward, they encounter another chokehold. Luca and his team take cover behind a pillar. Luca sees that they have built a spacious area underground. He believes they must be forming a defensive line here. He thinks that they are quite deep, and they should now be able to catch up to evacuating nobles. Luca releases the drone and sees that their defense line has 100 troops. Behind them, he can see the non-military personnel retreating. He believes that Lily must be in that group. Rack says that their squad is moving faster compared to others. He asks if they should wait for them to join. Luca thinks that he's right. His brain is also overloading from using too much Arky's combat. Suddenly, a huge red light emits from the corner. Luca senses that the gunshot wasn't fired towards them. When he peeks, he sees that a commotion is happening in the rear. He believes that another squad must have arrived here at the same time. The only person who could be in such a rush would be Lei. Luca tells his teammates to advance while they are distracted. The soldiers with riot shields move to the front to provide cover against incoming projectiles. A shot pierces through the shield and hits the soldier. The soldier says that their shields couldn't last more than a few seconds. However, Luca tells them to hold on a bit longer. He thinks that he needs to be careful of the weapon that could kill him in one shot. He senses they have 8 high-power weapons. He'll aim for the moment when half of them would be reloading. Luca jumps forward and says, "This is the time." He advises his teammates to spread out and take cover while they focus fire on him. Rack screams at him, asking if he has gone nuts. Luca shields himself against projectiles and thinks that he can disregard the handguns and rifles as they can't penetrate his limbs. He prepares his gun and thinks that he'll take out those weapons first that pose a threat to him. He blasts away the heavy weapon in the arms of the enemy. Luca then lands in between the enemy and thinks that now they won't be able to fire freely. He chops off the enemy's leg, like cutting an onion. Luca starts going crazy and thinks that he has become unstoppable now. The last man surrenders and begs for mercy. Soon enough, they take everyone hostage. Luca tells Rack to restrain the rebels, and he agrees. Luca looks in front and sees some of Lei's team members' corpses. He thinks that these men were tasked with attacking the rear. He can't believe that Lei is sacrificing his men to reach Lily fast. He wants to help Lei, but he's also a soldier of the Empire. If he chooses one, then he'll have to give up the other. This situation infuriates him even more. Luca thinks that he'll kill Lily on the spot. He can't have Lei become a traitor. He needs to follow him. Luca instructs Rack to continue arresting more enemies. Once they all regroup, he'll leave the decisions up to him. Rack replies that his combat today was beyond extraordinary. Luca replies that he doesn't want to hear empty praises. Rack says that he has a major flaw as a commander. Luca replies that if it weren't for him, they would have suffered heavy losses. Rack says that he never led his men once. He broke through the obstacles solely with his own capabilities. If he relies on such methods, then he won't be able to become a good commander. Luca angrily replies that he did this because they have inferior capabilities. They wouldn't be able to understand his commands properly. Rack says that a day will come when he will need the help of people weaker than him. He can't remain the strongest forever. Luca says, Yeah, I get it. I will keep that in mind. Luca leaves and says that he'll follow his words if he finds his current method wrong. Rack thinks that he has a big ego but is also open to flexible thinking. He wishes Luca good luck on his journey. Luca, while running forward, analyzes his surroundings. He thinks that these corpses are of nobles who picked up weapons to buy some time. He believes that most of the suppression forces must be wiping out rebels. Luca remembers his memory with Lei. He was the only one with whom he shared his deep thoughts. He thinks that Lei is now expending soldiers of the Empire for his own motives. An ordinary platoon would have never risked their men to chase the rebels. He wonders what Lei will do even if he gets her out. She's bound to die in the end. He understands that she's a woman that he loves, but there's no need for him to die for her. Suddenly, a decapitated head says that he's surrendering, and he's from the Ramones family. Luca says that he doesn't care about his surrender. He wants to know where Lily is. The man replies that he doesn't know which way she went. Luca thinks that he must be lying as his iris shifted to the side in a flash. Luca puts his thumb in his eye, and the man asks what he's doing. He surrendered already. Luca says that he's giving him a final chance. Where did Lily Ramones run off to? The man says that she probably went down. Luca asks about the way to get there, but the man doesn't know much about it. He asks if he saw a person named Lei, and the man replies that his current state is because of him. The man says that he is crazy. Even after surrendering, he killed them. Luca gets bored of his yapping and kills him. He thinks that it's better to kill him as he would have undergone torture anyway. He feels a lot of guilt about killing so many people. This is something he has never experienced before, and wonders if this is what the battlefield does to one's mind. As Luca makes his way forward, he hears gunshots and screams. He wonders what he'll do if Lei crosses the line.